Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in to the carnival, if you will. That is our Thursday night football edition here in week 17. Kicking off fantasy championships, kicking off best ball championships is a matchup between the Cowboys and the Titans, but not just any matchup, folks. This is a special one indeed, in which Josh Dobbs is starting for the Tennessee Titans, in which Derrick Henry has been ruled out, in which for some reason, they're not going to get another look at Malik Willis at quarterback. Tony Pollard is not playing. The Cowboys are, I don't even know how much they're favored by at this point. And it's going to be a crazy one to break down. So joining me as always, we were just talking about off air. This might have even a little bit more of a preseason game feel to it. The preseason, the showdown, everyone's favorite virgin, Cody Main. Cody, how you doing?
Yeah, Gary, this is obviously everyone's here for the showdown analysis, but for the season-long bros, for the best ball bros, this is why I always suggest not drafting your teams until week 18. You just never know what's going to happen. You just never know. So here we are, Fantasy Football Championship Week, Best Ball Championship Week, and as you mentioned, we have Josh Dobbs starting in a game where who knows how much either team is motivated at all, and it does kind of feel like a rewind to August when you and I were doing these shows and talking about preseason showdown slates. So hopefully we can kind of break it down from an angle as if both teams are treating this game, straight up, and maybe we can kind of throw in some alternative angles if you're into shooting those in how this game might change and how the plays might change if it turns into more of a preseason slop fest, which it kind of looks like at this point.
Yeah. I don't have much else to add there. Just off the top, we do not have ownership projections updated yet to reflect the Josh Dobbs stuff, but projections should be accurate. So keep an eye on ownership throughout the day. Keep refreshing here, and that will update for you. Before we talk about what kind of outlook Josh Dobbs has, or attempt to talk about what kind of outlook Josh Dobbs has, why don't you tell us a little bit about some macro stuff tonight? You see 1% trying a Titans onslaught here at 5-1 and only 6% at 4-2. How are you approaching this slate?
Yeah, look, and this was obviously run with Malik Willis in, though, interestingly enough, the fact that Josh Dobbs is only 6K might not change this all that much. Josh Dobbs is priced as a backup quarterback, should be priced, or third string quarterback for this matter, should be priced on a showdown slate. So, I don't really expect this table to change much. I do think one thing in your smaller field tournament contest, you're playing against sharper players, you could potentially see even more, I know that sounds crazy, even more 4-2 and 5-1 stuff, as this just becomes abundantly clear that Tennessee really has no interest in playing this game out. And it seems like Dallas is going to run away with it. And you also have the Dallas pieces, the cheap pieces to make these 4-2, 5-1 type builds work. We've seen it push 30-35% on I won't say similar slates because there's nothing quite like this slate, but we've seen it push 30 and 35% for that 5-1 stuff. So just know, going into your small field, less casual contest, that ownership number is going to be pushed up. And if you're feeling frisky, even 3-3 type stuff where you expect it to be played out a little bit closer than, the 13.5, 14-point spread might indicate, you are going to get paid off with a little bit of an ownership discount.
Yeah, great point. It's a 13.5 point spread right now. I just looked on DraftKings Sportsbook at least. So not quite 2 touchdowns. We've seen bigger spreads than that. If there's anything going in the favor of Tennessee, it's that it's in Tennessee, I think. Dallas does still have something to play for because they technically, if the Eagles was out and the Dallas wins out, they technically, I think, could still grab the division. So, I would expect them to keep their foot on the gas for a lot of this game and kind of use it as both keep themselves in the game from a winning division standpoint, but also, they're hitting a stride offensively, and I think they want to keep that going, I'm sure. So I'd be surprised if Tennessee was even remotely competitive here, but we've seen crazier things.
2 other things real quick before we get into positions, just kind of on the macro stuff. And certainly you guys would be able to figure this out on your own as you're building teams, but salary really doesn't matter. So if you are somebody that sets min maxes on optimizers, sites like the Solver, you can pretty much throw all of that out the window on tonight's slate. Certainly we'll get into some positions that are legitimately stone minimum who, are not just top value plays, but are top overall plays on a slate like tonight. And then the second thing is that I think you should consider on a slate like this is that there are outcomes where if neither team is treating this as a straight up game, you should really try to be playing away from ownership, playing away even more so where the field seems confident in certain spots, and really trying to get very, very different if at all possible while still building teams that project pretty well. But I think projections are less meaningful on a slate like this where there's so many unknowns, so much uncertainty. There's input volatility on the plays. There's input volatility on which guys are going to be on the field. So I think really just trying to play away from ownership tonight is a good chance. If you catch that one guy who happens to be lightning in the bottle, could really separate you from the field even more so than normal showdown slates.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. All right, let's dive in to quarterback, and let's get the easier conversation out of the way first, which is Dak Prescott. I think obviously the highest floor ceiling combo on the slate. I don't think that's even a question. Titans have been a pass funnel for the second half of the season. Dak looked great last week against Philadelphia, playing probably his best football of the season right now. I have a best ball finals team in the Puppy 3, an underdog that has a Dak CD Zeke stack to it. So I'm hoping that it all hits in a big way for sure. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, a cash game lock, you're seeing 82% total ownership there. I wouldn't mind, matching it or going over in tournaments as well. I mean, your biggest risk is that he hits a floor but doesn't hit his ceiling before Dallas starts running out the clock. In my opinion, that's your biggest risk here. But yeah, go ahead on Dak.
Agreed that is the biggest risk, but this gets into a situation that if you think they end up blowing out Tennessee to the point where they get pulled, he's certainly going to be a big part of that. And because salary, you can basically throw it at the windows, particularly at that point, if the game gets that far out of hand that they're bringing in backups for the third and fourth quarter or something of that nature, then you're still going to want the raw points that Dak provided in that situation. So I'm kind of with you. I would imagine now that Tony Pollard has been ruled out, now that we don't have Malik Willis at 8,600 here, like a little bit more, and it can't go much higher than 82, but we have seen 90% plus total ownership on some of these quarterbacks in showdown slates past. Because you don't have those other options to pull even a little bit away from Dak, I think it is going to get really close to what we've seen from Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. Although he doesn't possess that type of rushing floor / upside, I think we're going to see probably 90% plus Dak. I think it's probably right, even if they do get up and blow this team out, and maybe a majority of that comes on the ground. I think you probably still want the raw points from Dak regardless. And as you mentioned off the top, they are still playing for something, although to us it seems unlikely. This team still does have a chance to get the division win and end up getting a home playoff game if they win out and the Eagles lose out, I believe.
Yeah, that's
and certainly something worth playing for, particularly with it being a Thursday night game before the Eagles play in Week 17. So yeah, not a whole lot else to add there other than I think the 82 to 85 to even up to 90% total ownership is pretty efficient. And I would imagine that captain ownership could end up creeping up to 16, 18, 20% as well. At that point, maybe you can talk yourselves into getting on some of these skill position players, but I still think that is pretty efficient and where I would want to be at in tournaments as well.
Agreed there. I don't have anything else to add. Dak's a great play. All right, let's talk Josh Dobbs. He was a 2017 fourth round pick out of the University of Tennessee. His career NFL statistics are 10 of 17 for 45 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception, a 39.1 passer rating. Not much there. He was a runner in college, and 830 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns his senior year at Tennessee. So that's something. Did run a 4.64 40-yard dash. So he's got some speed for a quarterback. Obviously Dallas has a great pass rush. There's a chance that he could be scrambling here. But at the end of the day, I guess from a passing perspective, it's hard to be worse than Malik Willis was, right? Malik Willis just looked completely lost as far as how to operate an NFL offense from a passing perspective. I feel like Vrabel making this move is hey, let's try to put something out on the field that can resemble an NFL passing game. Maybe if he feels like Dobbs can bring a little bit more in that department. I obviously have no idea, but he's $6,000 quarterback. How do you handle a situation like this?
Yeah, and I'm fully with you on that too, because I don't think the change from Malik Willis to Josh Dobbs will really impact ownership much. We have 48% ownership there. I think it'll probably come down maybe closer to 35, 40% as people really question what the motivations are here in Tennessee. Will Josh Dobbs get the full game? As you can see on the table, we have it projected as such. And I think Anthony Amico did a really good job in our internal Slack channel of describing what Josh Dobbs' rushing upside is or rushing capabilities are. And what he mentioned is somewhere between Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis. Yeah. So if you're telling me we're going to get a guy who's, roughly between what Tennessee was trotting out there previously on the ground, and I think is a more capable NFL passer at this point of his career. We've seen it at least recently in smaller samples in preseason games. But you mentioned Malik Willis, even dating back to Malik Willis's preseason attempts, a guy that's going to complete roughly 50 to 55% of his passes, going to get sacked on 10, 12, 13% of his dropbacks, and it has a higher interception rate. Like, I think that this is probably a net positive for Tennessee's passing game, but trying to pick the spots where this is going to be the best ways to attack is tough. I think in cash games where we're probably rolling out a 4-2, maybe a 5-1, I think Josh Dobbs makes sense because I think he's the safest source of playing time.
Yeah.
I don't think that they would make this move if for some reason they envisioned a 50-50 split or a 60-40 split or anything of that nature. So, although there's plenty of question marks, we just saw it with Nick Foles, a guy who had taken a year and a half basically away from real life football action. We're getting a similar situation here with Dobbs, and it's been even longer for him for real full game action.
Never started an NFL game.
I have my concerns. There's definitely some doubt, but from a playing time perspective, given what the rest of this Tennessee Titans offense has, I think he's the safest option from it.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at it, never started an NFL game. Who knows if he's ever going to have another opportunity again? The Titans at least invested some draft capital into Malik Willis. Like, they were trying to protect him at all costs. I think he just throws anything against the wall. Like, he gives it every single thing he has here at 6,000. If he's only going to come in with 40 to 50% ownership, I have no problem taking a stand and just try and go for it. Just go for more. We know game script will be in his favor in all likelihood. Why not? I would take a shot personally in tournaments and take a stand above the field, but obviously you're going in with blinders on. You just don't know. So anyway, it is. I mean, it's terrifying because I felt like I was a little bit more confident than the field and maybe than I should have been with Nick Foles, coming in. And certainly it's a different situation given the price and given the fact that Josh Dobbs actually has some rushing ability, but like, we have not seen it. There's no way to know what this guy is as an NFL quarterback at this point. We're looking at like 53, 60, 75, attempt sample sizes from preseason games and trying to kind of extrapolate that out. Do I think he's going to complete passes at a 66% clip like he did in the preseason? Not a chance. Do I think he's going to have even a 4% touchdown rate? Probably not. So like, there's chances, there's certainly outcomes here where his passing output looks as bad as Malik Willis's has in his 3 starts, and he doesn't offer as much with his legs. But, like I said, we'll get to it when we get to the skill position stuff for the Titans. But I think that there are some chance, we've been talking about it in Slack, that like, maybe these skill position guys don't play a full game either. So, I think Josh Dobbs at least is going to be out there for 100% of the snaps. Yeah, I think that's much riskier as far as the skill position guys, and we'll talk about that right now. So let's talk running back here. Let's talk at the top there with Zeke. Obviously, Tony Pollard has been ruled out here. That leaves Ezekiel Elliott as the bell cow. Wouldn't be surprised, though, if Malik Davis there at 200 gets really steamed up now, and I think you mentioned in the article, becomes a cash game lock for you. You don't, as you said, you don't really need to worry about salary too much here, though. So I guess, how are you approaching the Dallas backfield? And I think it's a pretty obvious answer, yes, but how comfortable are you playing these two guys together?
Yeah, I think Zeke is a cash game lock. We mentioned that this team is going to treat this game straight up for at least as long as they need it to. So even if they, jump out to a very early lead, I don't know, something like 21-0 in the second quarter or something of that nature, or even wider, I think Zeke is certainly going to be a big part of that. Maybe at that point they consider pulling back the reins on him. But I think Zeke is certainly a cash game lock, and somewhere where I feel comfortable, that 24.3% ownership that we have on Pollard right now, a lot of that's going to funnel up to CeeDee Lamb, to Dak Prescott, and come down a little bit to Zeke Elliott there as well, probably closer to 75, maybe even up to 80%. But, I feel really comfortable with Zeke tonight. I think that they'll give him the opportunities for as long as this game remains close. And then it's going to be Malik Davis, who was basically operating in the Tony Pollard role during practice this week, taking the RB2 snaps in practice, kind of in anticipation for Tony Pollard to sit. And, as I mentioned, $200, the price tag doesn't really matter. So he probably won't pop into a ton of optimal lineups because you just really don't need that salary relief. But I feel really good about his projection. And certainly that ownership is going to come up probably closer to 25%. But I don't mind using Malik Davis in a cash game lineup, even though we don't necessarily need the salary relief. You're basically looking at somebody like, between him and a kicker, or, between him and maybe the Dallas defense, there's a couple of options there that will have a similar projection. But I feel really good about Malik Davis being the guy that closes this game out for Dallas. They're not going to give Zeke 25 touches in this game. So I think we see a pretty good workload from Dallas's RB2 in this game.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Okay, let's talk Tennessee side. Expecting Hassan Haskins to take the reins here as the RB1. We've seen him actually have some success this season, a little bit through the air as well. Or am I thinking of Hilliard? I get them confused.
No, well, it was Hilliard in the beginning part of the season. And then, recently, and I don't think he's had nearly as much success, but Haskins has been kind of typecasted into that pass catching role alongside Derrick Henry. But it does sound like from Tom Pelissero, from everybody else, that Haskins is going to be the lead dog tonight. We have it projected as such between him and Julius Chestnut. And Haskins is a guy that, we were really excited about playing preseason for these preseason slates, where he was the lead back. And it sounds like he's going to get those opportunities again tonight. I think we have this at like a 60-40 split or 65-35 type split between him and Julius Chestnut. Haskins is a big dude, though he's been typecasted in that kind of pass catching role because obviously they have Derrick Henry and don't need to use Haskins as a rusher. I think he's 5'11", 225 or something of that nature, carried a huge workload at Michigan in his collegiate days. And I think he's going to get every opportunity to prove that he's the lead back in tonight's game. He'll at least get the early crack to do so. And given his skill set, I think he becomes close to kind of a cash game lock as we fill out that shell here, on the show. I think that Haskins is certainly a guy who I feel comfortable with regarding his playing time and his opportunity outlook as well.
Yeah, agreed there. Right. It was Hilliard earlier in the year, I guess, that had some success there. But yeah, Haskins, I don't mind him as a bell cow here. I feel like they will feed him a lot. Behind him, I guess it's a guy we are very familiar with from the preseason, and Julius Chestnut was somebody I was playing a good amount in the preseason. I think he's got some talent, and he takes on Chestnut here tonight.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting tournament spot here. Clearly, we just talked about it. We don't need the money. So, I don't see a lot of people dropping 6 points in base projection just to get the $1,600 discount because you don't need it. And I think you're going to be paid off with, like you see there, a 3-1, a 4-1 ownership gap. I don't think Haskins is 4-1 to outscore Julius Chestnut, or even 3-1 to outscore Julius Chestnut tonight. This workload could be much closer to 50-50. And it's possible that Chestnut just happens to be the guy that falls into the end zone, or he could be the guy that ends up, just soaking up some of those late game carries once this game is already out of hand. He's another big bodied guy, right around 6 foot, 220 pounds. He's more of a bruising type back between the tackles type runner. So the yardage, the chunk yardage may not be there. The PPR volume might not be there, but I think that he is capable of certainly outscoring Haskins and being a part of a winning lineup. So I like that. Maybe that ownership gap widens a little bit as people get that report on Haskins getting a big workload. And I like that from an ownership perspective, particularly in your 5-1, 4-2 stuff. It's just a clean 1v1 pivot off of what is going to be the chalk on the Tennessee side. And you get a nice opportunity for direct leverage there with Chestnut.
Yeah, how do you not love Julius Chestnut here tonight? Undrafted out of Sacred Heart. I don't even know if I know any other NFL players who went to Sacred Heart. And it is the season for Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. We are full on Julius Chestnut here tonight. I stand it. All right.
I feel a flag plant coming.
Yeah, it might be.
I won't talk you into it, but the Chestnuts roasting over an open fire, buddy. That's can't leave that one on the table now.
All right. This is fucking ridiculously. Oh man. Let's talk.
Somehow that was not the least Carnival-esque take of this entire show, because that might have been the best analysis given at this point.
All right. CeeDee Lamb, I need a big game from him for best ball. Can we get it here, Cody?
Yeah, everything points in that direction. And I keep saying this for as long as the game stays close. Like, once, and we see this in preseason too, I wanted to bring this up off the top, but I kind of forgot to. We see this when one coach starts to like punt the game, the other coach kind of follows suit. So do you think like Mike McCarthy's sitting on the sideline there, and then he sees them trot out Julius Chestnut and Josh Dobbs, and all of a sudden he's like, God, I got to throw out CeeDee Lamb for 99.9% of the snaps? I don't know, but certainly they are playing for something. And as long as it does stay close, I think he's the guy that has the biggest opportunity to really roast speaking of roasting chestnuts over an open fire, like CeeDee Lamb could absolutely roast this secondary. Everything points in that direction. They are a team that is that is allowing opposing offenses to throw against it, and they've been terrible at defending it. They've been terrible at defending explosive passes. Everything points in the CeeDee Lamb direction.
Yeah.
You just got to hope that he gets there while it's still close. So for your Dak CeeDee Lamb best ball stacks, feel pretty good about it. Hopefully he gets it all done in the first half.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it being like 40-14 by the end of the third quarter, and everything came from Dak, CD, and Zeke for my best ball bags. I wouldn't mind it at all. Anyway, Michael Gallup seems a little expensive for what the production has been, but it's definitely another blow up spot. But I think it's going to keep the ownership a little bit off him, just given that how bad they have been to outside receivers. Like I could see a big Gallup game here, especially because I think now with T.Y. Hilton kind of eating into Noah Brown, I like it. This is a very clear. I don't see Noah Brown creeping up on Gallup anymore. It's kind of the other way around. So I do kind of like this Gallup spot for tournaments as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if the field finds themselves in this price range, when we go to tight end, you have a Dalton Schultz who's 6,600, who is a little bit cheaper and projects better, has a better base projection. So I think we'll see the ownership gap widen out a little bit there. And you just don't find yourself getting into this mid-tier range between 5 and 7K because you pay up for CD, you pay up for Dak, you pay up for Zeke, and then you've got these cheaper options on the Tennessee side. You've got Malik Davis in play. So it kind of just washes out this whole mid-tier range. So I think, like you mentioned, Michael Gallup, Noah Brown, T.Y. Hilton, who is much less in play. But if you want to play that angle that this game gets out of hand early and they want to get reps for a guy who might end up being a piece in the postseason, you could see a little bit more T.Y. Hilton action. So I think that this mid-range is one way to get unique in tournaments, Michael Gallup being one of the best of those options. And certainly I talked about it in the article too. Like if Michael Gallup finds a way to get his, it's going to be direct leverage off of the more popular guys like CD, like Zeke, because if Gallup is catching long passes, that's just fewer and fewer opportunities for these other guys to pay off their own price tags. So I like Gallup as like direct leverage off of those guys. And I don't even mind using him at captain either.
Yeah, I like that as well. Before we talk about this Tennessee Carnival, Noah Brown, T.Y. Hilton, it is a max one spot for me between those two guys. T.Y., a lot of buzz that they're drawing up more plays for him, that we expect him to play more. Did look okay, didn't look quite like a grandpa on the field like I expected against the Eagles. Had one nice catch I remember seeing at the very least. They brought him in, and I guess I thought it was kind of just a depth body here, but they brought him in to put him on the field and play. I know Noah Brown has been a favorite of his coaching staff as well, so I wouldn't roll either of these guys out. You do save $800 on T.Y. Hilton. Not sure it obviously matters, but any takes on the tertiary Cowboys receivers here?
Yeah, I'm with you that it would be max one for Noah Brown, T.Y. Hilton, and even if they call anybody up off the practice squad as well, I would throw them into that group as well. And I think if you're into T.Y. Hilton at 4,400, you are kind of playing the angle that this game blows out early, and or that they're just drawing up more packages for him. I know I think it was Mike McCarthy, maybe it was Jerry Jones, had talked about getting him more involved and it just be kind of becoming a progression. It does seem like he will be a part of this offense going forward. Though it maybe didn't seem like that when they signed him. So I do have interest in the largest of field tournaments for T.Y. Hilton and Noah Brown.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Tennessee side is a lot harder to break down for a couple of reasons. To me, most of which, like, why would you go Treylon Burks, who struggled with injuries all year? Why would you, this game does not mean anything. Everything is next week for you. You're forecasting that with no Derrick Henry, with starting Josh Dobbs. Why would you go put out by far your best receiver in a game that doesn't mean anything? So I would be worried about his snap count. To a lesser extent, Robert Woods as well, obviously still coming off the ACL. He struggled this year. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is the one that has been a little bit more durable. I could see them, giving him more of his full complement of snaps, but still, I mean, this is a really hard receiver room to like here tonight. I don't have many takes. Do you?
It is tough, and we started taking some unders in props. Those numbers are long gone. We took an under on Robert Woods. We have an under on Austin Hooper if we include tight end there. And I kind of echo the same concerns that if they are completely punting this game, which it appears based off of the injury report on the defensive side of the ball, the fact that they aren't playing Malik Willis, Derrick Henry's ruled out. Treylon Burks seems like a guy that they would want to protect for a meaningful game, but I'll say the same for Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. When this team, the Titans, that is, was not playing their key contributors in the preseason, Westbrook-Ikhine was part of that group that was not playing. They viewed him at that point already as a starter, as a key offensive contributor. So I would imagine that if they treat this game as such, he would be a guy who could also see limited opportunities, limited snaps, and could get pulled early. Part of the problem is, and this goes back to the projections, that if we start to pull off work from these guys because of that angle that we're playing, that maybe they don't play the full game, maybe they only get a few series, then it starts to make Chris Conley and Racey McMath and these guys look like standout plays, which is really tough to do from a projection standpoint. But I will say, if you want to shoot that angle that this wide receiver core sees limited snaps, then Chris Conley would be the next guy up, in my opinion. And then third man up would be, or next guy up after that would be Racey McMath, who we don't have for a projection right now. And we also probably want to keep an eye out for practice squad call-ups. It's possible that a guy like Des Fitzpatrick or somebody of that nature ends up getting projected. And I think it's an easy 1v1, and this would be a max one group for sure. But if you want to play that angle, like I said, that this game doesn't play straight up and that Tennessee pulls guys early, you could have a really 1v1, really easy 1v1 where maybe like an optimal lineup has Hassan Haskins, who's going to be 40% owned, and you play Chris Conley instead, who's going to be unowned, and he ends up playing 50 to 75% of the game. It's really good direct leverage. It's just really tough to project it that way.
Yep. Okay. I don't have anything to add. Let's talk tight end. So two Titans tight ends. I guess I still have Tennessee up here. We'll talk at a whole. Two Titans tight ends splitting work. Obviously, Chig Okonkwo, rookie Go Terps, has been really strong in his limited snaps and routes. He's earning targets like a fantastic player right now, and good on him. Obviously, that a lot of that was under Tannehill. The success we were seeing there. We're seeing only 15.6% total ownership here. That doesn't seem like too much for me. I don't know where he stands in the pecking order of things, as if if they do go away from things, would they give him more work or less work? I don't know how important they consider him to be. My guess is it's somewhat important because they've been drawing up plays for him at a consistent basis here. But how are you handling Okonkwo and Hooper before we have the kind of more important Schultz conversation?
Yeah, I don't think Okonkwo is a guy who ends up getting more work as a result of them pulling starters, but I could see him still playing around his 40 to 50% of the team snaps. He's been in a route for roughly 40 to 50% of the dropbacks to this point. I would imagine that stays relatively similar. I don't know how much of his production in kind of recent weeks or in weeks where Malik Willis has played is tied to Malik Willis just targeting tight ends more. But I would imagine another quarterback with relatively minimal experience like Josh Dobbs, if Okonkwo is out there, is a guy who provides a big target, who has earned targets at a really high level, like an elite level especially for a rookie tight end. I would imagine that Chig ends up being a guy, who could pay off his price tag where he's just 4,800. And if the ownership holds, I kind of like that play. I like that play more so than the Burks, than the Westbrook Akines, than the Woodses of the world. So if I had to choose kind of one of these de facto starting Tennessee pass catchers, for me, it would be Chig.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The upside has been there, and I agree that the workload should be around the same no matter how this plays out. And all it takes for him is, one or two big plays. Obviously, he's priced up now compared to when we first spoke about him. But another guy that's been consistently putting it on tape, and I at least believe in the talent. Hooper coming in with, cheaper, half the ownership. Any interest there? Yeah,
we just took an under on Hooper as well. I think at 20.5 receiving yards and certainly props and DFS is a different game. But I still think that some of the reasons why we liked that Hooper under is some of the reasons why I, really have minimal interest in Austin Hooper, even at 3,600. Even at 7.1% ownership, it feels like as a veteran, as the starting tight end in this offense, it doesn't seem like he's a guy that they need to trot out there for a huge portion of this game.
Agreed. All right. Dalton Schultz been very good under, with Dak for most of the season, at least, consistent target share, consistent workload. It is a couple weeks separated from a big game, 4 targets each of the last 2 weeks, hasn't done too much. I do think he's the kind of the cash game guy I prefer over Michael Gallup if you want to go there, but I do agree with you. In that I think Gallup's a more interesting tournament play if you can get to the $400 more. But I think Schultz obviously has a solid floor here tonight in a pretty good matchup.
Yeah, do agree. And where pricing doesn't matter and you can get up from some of these guys in that 4 and 5K range up to Dalton Schultz, the floor is much, much, much safer. He will be a guy because Dallas has, Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot will be active. It's possible that Sean McKeon is active. They have guys that they can put in at tight end to give Dalton Schultz some rest. Dalton Schultz is certainly a guy who's dealt with injuries in his past, not a guy that they need to continue to trot out there for the entirety of this game if it gets out of hand early. So hopefully he's a guy that gets his quickly and moves on and gives away to some of these other guys. And speaking of that, I think you can set a max 1 rule for guys like Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot, Sean McKeon, but I think they should be part of your large field MME player pool. Jake Ferguson actually is a guy who probably I would be okay playing in even smaller field contests, given the fact that he's going to be out there regardless of what Dalton Schultz does. But these are another way just to differentiate in large field tournaments if you want to play that angle that this game gets out of hand.
Yeah, it seems like every week one of those guys, Ferguson or Hendershot, has like a 25-yard catch, and you just never know if that's going to end up in the end zone, So I agree with you on that. All right, defense and kicker. Are we going to get – this isn't the highest projection we've had from a defense this year, is it? It might be. It's got to be up there.
It's got to be up there. If not, I actually did some manual docs, and this is just it speaks to the interesting nature of trying to project ownership for Showdown slates, because like you just don't need the salary relief. So I know Dallas, everyone wants to play Dallas. It's Josh Dobbs. Everyone's going to be excited for this Dallas defense, but like the Opto Bros aren't going to find themselves onto an absurd amount of Dallas defense, because you just don't need to drop down to 5,800 all that often to get onto it. But I will say, like hand builders, people that are manipulating projections and manipulating their exposures are going to get onto more the Cowboys D than say Josh Dobbs, than say some of these pass catchers in the same price range, because of the perceived safety of it. And I'll agree. I mean, it's Josh Dobbs. It's a team that's got like a 13.5 point team total now since Josh Dobbs has been announced the starter. So I feel pretty comfortable saying we're going to see 35% plus. It might get up to 40, 45, 50% in some contests. And boy, I know we don't see it too often, but I could see 10% being closer to a floor for the captain ownership. So the only thing that I think, and like, again, the only thing that I think keeps this held in check at all is the fact that you just don't need the salary relief tonight. So I don't know how many people are going to be dropping from like Dak and Zeke and CD in order to play Cowboys D at captain. And I think if I were to capitulate a little bit on the DST at captain stuff in tournaments, it would be that if you don't have confidence that any one skill position player is going to play for a full 4 quarters, it goes back to the preseason game where like DST at captain in preseason was a virtual lock. It was a printing press for us because it's the only position group that is going to secure points for a full 4 quarters. I won't go that far tonight because I think it's more likely than not that Dobbs, that Dak, that Zeke, that CD, those type of guys at least do enough damage in their time on the field that they beat the Cowboys DST. But I think it's possible, man. So I know it's going to be really, really highly owned, and I probably won't be doing it myself, but I think DST at captain is a little bit more in play tonight, just given the uncertainties in playing time.
All right, folks, you heard it. Cody said that you can play defensive captain. Fire it off.
I'm actually now that I think about it, I'm wearing shout out the ETR merch store. I'm wearing the capitulate shirt today. So this is perfect.
I almost threw mine on actually too. That's funny. I'm not kidding. I was very close to putting about that.
So if DST at captain wins tonight, don't say I didn't warn you. Although I will not be playing it myself.
Fair enough. Any interest in Titans defense as a contrarian tournament option here?
I wish I could say that I do. It's so tough. And maybe you can make the same argument for the Titans defense that I just made for the Cowboys defense, that it would be one of the lone positions that is capable of scoring points for a full 4 quarters. But I think if we get to the point where the Dallas offense has started to pull its starters, it's because the Titans defense has given up 21, 28, 35 points plus.
Yeah, I agree.
And at that point, like, you need them to do some work late against, Cooper Rush or whoever, in order to secure points. So even at 7.1% ownership, don't have a ton of interest.
The other thing is, like, unless we're going to Will Grier here, and I don't even know if he's going to be active, we have a big sample of Cooper Rush, and he's not like the most mistake-prone quarterback either. So he's pretty steady Eddie there, back in the pocket. So kickers, I know I always talk to you about, hey, like, let's consider taking the kicker on the other side of the high team total. I do not feel that way tonight. I am worried about the Titans' ability to move the ball at all. If I am picking a kicker, I'm much more interested in Mayer. Bullock obviously could get there. I just think I'd rather take the team that is going to be moving the ball at a more consistent rate in this spot. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. Much higher team total, certainly. And then once we get to the situation, if we get to the situation where this Dallas team is up big, there's no reason for them to go for it on 4th down. There's no reason for them to push, really push the ball. Like, once they get in scoring position, it could just be Maher out there banging through field goals to like ice this game away. And he's the only kicker on the active roster. Like, we don't have to worry about him being pulled or anything of that nature. So, I think he's probably a cash game consideration, maybe a cash game play. But yeah, it's tough to go to a kicker that's got a kicking for a team that's like maybe, live to like not score any points at all.
Yep. Agreed there. All right. If anyone has any questions, I have a couple minutes of, I don't know if Cody does. Cody might leave. I'll answer your question. No, I'm just kidding. If anyone has any questions, we'll try to answer them.
I've already capitulated on Captain DST on a DST that's 40% owned. So feel free to talk me into anything else that I will feel terribly for saying.
This is a good question from Chase. Do we think TY is only taking snaps away from Noah Brown? Lamb snaps went down last week also. That's an interesting point. I mean, I think on this particular slate, and Cody, you tell me if you disagree, I could see him taking away snaps from everyone, depending on how the game script goes. I do think if it stays somewhat close, within 2 scores for most of the game, I would expect him to mostly impact Noah Brown, though, personally.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like we've talked about, I think that this Dallas team plays this game straight up for as long as they need to. And I think that them playing it straight up is their 3 wide receiver set, mostly consisting of CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, and Noah Brown. I do think, based off of comments, even while this game is close, based off of comments this week, that T.Y. Hilton will mix in more. And like you said, I think it'll take away from each guy. Maybe not equally, but I think Hilton playing more will take away a little bit from each guy.
Okay, awesome. This question from Hunter: would you allow? Obviously, we've said we're fine with both Zeke and Davis, but would you be okay with both of them in a lineup if a Lamb or Dak captain lineup?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in that situation, you're just hoping to get the 4 or 5 highest scoring Dallas guys. And Zeke could be the guy that scores the first 2 touchdowns, and Malik Davis could be the guy that scores the last one. And in those cases, he's certainly getting the garbage time mop-up duty late. Malik Davis, that is. Totally okay with all 4 of those guys. Maybe you just get the 4 guys from the Dallas side that ends up scoring.
Yep. And then most importantly, Jeremy asked, Cody, how do you live with yourself?
I ask myself that every single day. More so today than any other, because I just talked about a Captain DST that I already feel gross about.
All right, Cody, we're going to go right from these ridiculous last couple showdown slates right into XFL USFL season. You're going to feel great about it, and golf's not far away from being back too, so don't worry. Dallas defense in single entry flex or captain. This will be our last question before we get to flag.
Yes, I think it's fine. Like I said, I'm personally, you won't see me flip a lineup today that has Dallas DST at captain. I just think it's going to be too highly owned for how often it ends up being optimal, even on a weird slate like this where it could end up being a more preseason style slate. But I think it's totally okay if you want to do it. If that's how you want to play and you want to play that angle that this game gets really weird really early, and Dallas is just racking up points for a full 4 quarters because they're picking off Josh Dobbs, who hasn't played football in 4 years. Totally okay with doing it. It's just a tough distribution play, range of outcomes play when it's going to be, upwards of 15, even 20% owned. I just can't stomach it.
Okay. And then last one, really, basically what he's asking here is who would you fade out of Zeke, Dak, and Lamb? Instead of ranking them, I think he's basically saying, trying to get uniqueness. All 3 guys are going to be so owned. Do you have a fade lean here between the big 3 on Dallas?
Yeah, I think it would be Zeke from that perspective. If you're talking about just one, then you get the correlation there with CD and Dak. And I think you can talk yourselves into the narratives that Zeke has a productive game between the 20s, but maybe he's not the guy that finds the end zone. And in those cases where he maybe has 16 carries for 85 yards and doesn't find pay dirt, then I think you're pretty happy with that fade. And you can maybe just play that maybe more of the scoring comes via the air and you get that from CD and Dak.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially when, that's the way we've been attacking Tennessee. We'll see who they sit on the other side of the ball. Like it's possible Jeffrey Simmons basically barely plays tonight and those kind of guys. But, they have been stout-ish against the run or good against the run for a lot of the season and, getting killed through the pass. Hunter asked, and I swear this is the last question. Hunter asked if we're limiting 1 Titans pass catcher per lineup. I would say I would limit 1 Titans wide receiver per lineup. But if I basically had Chig or Hooper with a receiver, I'd be okay with it personally.
Yeah, I think that's pretty sharp. And you can certainly set groups and rules too. Like, again, if you're playing that angle where maybe the Woods, Burks, Westbrook, Akine group starts, like you can do limit it to 0 of those guys if you have like a Chris Conley or Racey McMath in a lineup or something like that, or rule out Chris Conley, Racey McMath if one of those guys is in a lineup. I would certainly be max 1 without Josh Dobbs. I would probably move it up to 2 pass catchers in total, which would include Chig and Hooper, like Gary said, if you have Josh Dobbs in a lineup.
Agreed. All right, Cody, it is time. I will give you the honors for having had to work on this slate all day. Go ahead. Who do you like tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could pick somebody out of the Titans side to really kind of get off the board. I think, I mean, total ownership on this Titans side might be, 150, 200% when we're talking about 600% in total for all six positions.
Don't
But
worry,
I have to
I'll
stick
do
to
it
the
for
Dallas
us.
side.
Yeah.
I got to stick to the Dallas side. I just have a really, 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 really hard time thinking that this Tennessee Titans team puts up a fight. But I want to be contrarian. I want to give you guys a play that I think is really sharp, but will come with minimal ownership, and that's going to be Michael Gallup.
Nice.
I think he's certainly the wide receiver 2 in this offense still, even with the addition of T.Y. Hilton and Noah Brown still in existence. Dalton Schultz is going to be a little bit higher owned. I think Michael Gallup kind of has that big play ability still within his range of outcomes. And if Michael Gallup is catching deep passes against this porous Titans secondary, it's going to take away from CD. It's going to take away from Zeke. And so I think that that's a way to offer direct 1v1 leverage off of his more popular pass catching teammates, his more popular skill position teammates. So give me Michael Gallup at 7K in the optimal lineup.
I like it. All right, guys, you know where I'm going. We're roasting, and we're doing it because here's the thing, guys. Dontrell Hilliard's on IR, right? If the Titans are to make it, if they are to somehow win next week and get to the playoffs, Derrick Henry, they need Hassan Haskins as their RB2. I think he's an important part of what they might need to be doing next week, this week, whatever. We know they're punting on this game. Tis the season. So, give us Julius Chestnuts, give us Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. And let's bink. He's the run back I want in 5-1s and 4. I'm not kidding. I really like it. I think, and it's a complete ownership flip on a chalkier Haskins. So give me one Julius Chestnut as we kind of come full circle on preseason stuff here. There you go. Look how beautiful those look, by the way. I'm a big Chestnut fan. I think they're underrated.
We need you now to take us to bring this truly full circle, to take us out on a Chestnuts roasting over an open fire tune as you play us out on this wonderful Thursday night showdown slate.
That's fair enough. Man, I've never lit my beautiful pipes to the live people, but I'll do it. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Beautiful. You guys are all very sick for playing this slate. Just kidding, guys. Good luck, everyone. We'll be back. I don't know. I might be able to do on Sunday, Cody. We'll talk, but we'll be back at the very least for Monday night. You got a couple more showdown slates on the regular season. Thanks for the fun here today, fellas and ladies. Good luck this evening.